Sure.
I got two things I'll talk to you about. The first one is kind of a per diem for travel expenses for our employees. As an example, our jail staff, each jailer has to go to at least a 20-hour school yearly for updates. Our communication staff has to have, I believe, it's 16 hours a year to keep their certification up to date. We had a credit card that we had sent with our employees to pay for meals, fuel, and motels while they were, for lodging while they were at these trainings. Because of the new federal regulations with the credit cards and identity theft, we now have to have the company name and the username has to be listed on the credit card. We can no longer have a generic card. I have assigned credit cards to patrol deputies, but I don't want to issue every employee, obviously, a credit card. We have some employees that don't have access to credit cards. Some employees who live paycheck to paycheck, like most people do, can't afford to pay for gas, meals, then submit a claim, and then wait 2 weeks to get reimbursed. What I would propose is the option to give them a per diem check ahead of time before the training, that they can pay for their meals and fuel, and then they can return with receipts, and what money they didn't spend then would be reimbursed or redeposited back in the general fund as revenue. So that way we're giving them the opportunity to pay for these services that we're making them go to, but yet they're not pocketing any extra money. I think that, you know, if we leave that open, that there will be some employees who will take that, some employees who won't. But I think if the option's there, they can make a request ahead of time, and then, you know, it helps them out and it helps us out.
How would you propose a per diem for fuel?
Well, I think you just figure out what we're giving for the mileage right now. In very rare cases we make them take their personal vehicle because we have a spare vehicle that we normally send people in training. And, you know, obviously they'd have to pay for fuel on the way back depending on where they're at, but I would suggest that we just use the mileage chart and whatever our current rate is for fuel reimbursement. Is it 50 cents or 40 cents a mile, whatever?
40 cents, but that's for private vehicles.
Yeah, that's for personal vehicle.
I don't know how you would do that for a county-owned vehicle.
Right. Well, you know, like I said, in rare cases they do that, but, you know, I don't know, that's something to think about.
Well, if they go in a county-owned vehicle and the county's got full of gas, then the county fills it back up with gas.
Right, but you know, I mean, if you get down, you know, depending on where you're going for this training, if you're going to Iowa City, I don't know if you can get to Iowa City and back without putting the gas in, you know.
We have, when me, Kenny and I talked about it yesterday, and I was against a per diem on a personal level because levy tax dollars, we need receipts, and it needs to be paid for actual expenditures. And so as he thought about this, he came up with a proposal to suggest that they come back with actual receipts, and that's how you. The only place that we would have a problem with that is as Dean's example, where you got 300 miles away and you are going to have to gas one time, but there's no reason that you couldn't allow one fill and then come back with that receipt as part of your per diem.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's that gas is going to stay in the county vehicle anyway.
mm-hmm.
So you're only, in your advance, you're going, assuming they're going to make it part of the way on county gas, and then you just advance them enough to fill it up on the way home?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Kurt had a question.
Well, I was gonna, the way the Navy did it, 'cause we worked on per diem all the time, is they just gave us a check for more than enough, and you turned in receipts and the, whatever cash was left. If we didn't get a receipt, we paid for it.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we're coming around to.
But they didn't have to try to figure out if we need 1 or 2 fill-ups, they just give us more than enough.
But that gets into a lot of reimbursements back into the general fund,
It would be a half a dozen a year, yeah. You know.
I don't, like the deputies, if they've got an assigned card, they wouldn't be using it. It would be just for other staff. And they may or may not need to use it. I don't think there'd be a lot of activity, Joe.
Well, I was just thinking back when our CPAs were here last month, they had a particular issue with reimbursables. And this new Eden accounting system that we're using doesn't recognize reimbursables. It's a whole different process now for revenue accounts instead of going back into the line item that it came out of, if you understand what I'm saying.
Right, so it would have to go back into this miscellaneous revenue, just because it can't go back into like my training line item and the
Right.
reimbursables, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So you're going to actually show more expenditure out of that line item than what's actually being spent, if you see what I'm saying.
Right.
But on the other hand, you're showing more miscellaneous revenue.
But you're bringing it back in.
So is that a problem then, with that said?
I don't know that it's a problem, but it's not a very accurate way of showing what you're doing. I mean, the fuel thing is particularly tricky, I think, but there's other counties that do a per diem system where they just say $3 for breakfast, $5 for lunch, and $10 for dinner. You eat 1 meal a day or you eat 3 meals a day, you still have the $15 or whatever it is. The payback thing is what is going to be confusing. I'm not saying it can't be done, it's just going to be a headache until everybody figures out what's going on. And then you're also going to have to adjust your budgets accordingly, either before the budget is approved or through an amendment after the budget's.
Well, normally when we do that, if we send somebody to training, all their expenses that are associated with that training comes out of that training line item. So, I don't know if there really be any amendment to that. It would just be I see what you're saying, be confusing, because it's showing we're spending more than what we're actually spending. But yet, you have on the backside of that, the additional revenue coming back in, But you're right, the old system was nice because you could put that right back into that line item.
Exactly.
And I think that's gonna be a challenge for everybody in the next year or two, getting used to that, But
You could make the round trip to Des Moines and back on one tank, but if you go beyond that, probably not. So that's just something to keep in mind.
and I don't know what the answer there for how you figure the fuel thing, or,
Well, I think if you know that you're going further than the one tank's going to service, you include enough to fill that tank. And then when it comes back, if there's anything left, it's still in the vehicle.
Yeah.
And so it's not gone. I mean, I don't see that as too big of a